Council adjourned meeting to order on Tuesday, January the 16th, 2007. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Roll call, Tracy, please.
Arbogast.
Here.
Garnos.
Here.
Gisselbeck.
Here.
Heller.
Here.
Johnson. Meisenheimer. Solberg. Here. Walder, Wilson, and York.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Agenda item number 1 is a motion to approve the minutes of the City Council meeting held on January the 2nd, 2007. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 2 is ordinance number 06-29, amending section 21.2302, parentheses 4, defining the voting requirements for matters decided upon by the Board of Adjustment. And Stanton?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I don't have anything additional to add from my comments at first reading. This change was recommended or directed by the Plan Commission to reflect a change last legislative session by the folks out in Pierre that reduced the voting requirement for Board of Adjustment. So to be consistent with state statute, they've suggested that we make this amendment.
We'll begin then with the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to the issue? Stan, is there anything else you'd like to add as far as to the public hearing?
Not unless there are questions. Currently, the ordinance requires a vote of 3/4 by the Board of Adjustment to overrule a decision by the building official to grant or deny a variance. And the legislature amended that requirement to reduce the voting minimum to 2/3. So it currently is 3/4. If this ordinance is approved, the voting requirement will be reduced to 2/3.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to the issue? If not, we'll close the public hearing then and go to council action. May I have a motion then to approve ordinance number 06-29?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Garnos and seconded by Alderman Heller. Any discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 3 is ordinance number 06-32. 32, amending section 21.0402, regulating the use and construction of residential uses on non-conforming lots. And we'll begin with Stanton.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, as I mentioned at first reading last time, this ordinance was prepared at the direction of the Plan Commission to remove limitations that exist on lots that don't meet the minimum district requirements, even though they were legally platted lots at the time that they were brought into the city or originally platted. And after visiting with several folks, both in the community as well as the Plan Commission, they directed me to draft this ordinance that's going to remove the restrictions on what folks can do on lots that don't meet minimum district requirements but yet are legal by virtue of platting.
Thank you, Stanton. We'll begin with the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to the issue? If not, then we'll close the public hearing and go to council action. May I have a motion then to approve ordinance number 06-32? So moved by Alderman Heller and seconded by Alderman Gisselbeck. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, can you give me an example of what this is going to do?
Stan, could you do that, please?
I can sure try, Gordon. If you're in a residential zoning district where the minimum lot width requirements, the amount of frontage that you have to have on a street, is 75 feet today, we can go through the annals of Watertown platting history and see that there are many places in Watertown where lots were platted in subdivisions that only had 50 foot of frontage. And currently, if you come up to the building inspection counter, having a lot that only has 50 feet of frontage and say, I'm in this zoning district, I would like to have a building permit to construct a residence, because the lot doesn't meet the minimum district requirements, they're turned away at the building inspection counter saying, you don't have a legally conforming lot, you can't build. This ordinance revision is going to remove that restriction. If you've got a plat that's legally platted, even though it doesn't meet the 75-foot requirement, you're going to be able to get a building permit to build something, but you still have to comply with all the setbacks in the zoning district.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 4 is the application for transfer of a retail on-off sale malt beverage license from SYR Incorporated, Happy Jacks, to BMG Enterprises, Inc., with same business name, address, and legal. We'll begin with the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to the issue? I'm speaking with Tracy. All the papers and everything is in order. If so, I'll close the public hearing and go to council action. This is a change of ownership. I'd ask for the approval of the application for transfer. Is there a motion, please? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 5 is the 2007 Employee Salary Resolution. And Tracy, you'll speak to that, please?
Yes, thank you. We have two resolutions on the agenda tonight. The first will deal with the Fraternal Order of Police Union positions, and the second will deal with the exempt staff and other positions that are not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. We did receive this morning the signed contract from the Fraternal Order of Police, so we have, pursuant to the resolution that you adopted at our last meeting, finalized that agreement now. And this resolution 07-04 puts into place the salary benefits that are provided for under that contract. If you do have any specific questions, I'd try to answer those.
We'll begin with the motion for the approval of the Resolution 0704. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Heller. Any questions or discussion on this? If not, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Tracy, item number B.
Thank you. This second resolution, 07-03, as I mentioned, addresses the exempt city employees, department heads, elected officials, and other non-exempt positions that are not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. This resolution would be effective January 1st and would provide for the salaries for all of those positions for the remainder of the year. If there are any specific questions, I'd try to address those.
If not, may I have a motion then for the approval? So moved by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any questions or discussion? I guess for clarification, the council people's salary and the mayor's salary is all remaining the same as it was last year, so. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6 is a request for letter of support from Costello Realty Company for their Briar Creek Townhome development. And we have here this evening representing Costello Realty Company, Joan Franken. Joan?
Thank you. Good evening. I represent Costello Realty, and we are the development company for what we call Briar Creek Townhomes that we are proposing to develop and build in Watertown off of Westminster. And we're proposing to develop 16 townhome units in that area. It will consist of 8 2-bedrooms and 8 3-bedroom townhomes with detached garages, and the site will also have a playground and picnic area on site there. And in order that we develop this, we make an application to the South Dakota Housing Development Authority in Pierre for tax credits. And as part of their application, they require us to meet with the local governing body, the city council, and request a letter of support. It's a form letter that they have in their application stating that we have come to you, shared our plans with you to develop this, and requesting a letter signed by the mayor that the city council has voted on this and approved this and has said, yes, you can build this in the city. We still have to go through zoning, submit our building plans if we are approved and everything like this. This is merely a letter of support. It does not bind the city to any financial support whatsoever. It's just stating that you are aware that we would like to build this by using the tax credits from the South Dakota Housing Development Authority. So that is why I'm here tonight. Does anybody have any questions on the information that I submitted in the December 19th packet of information?
I don't have a question, but the
blueprint that was in our packet. They're very nice units.
They are, this is a townhome development that we have built in other communities in South Dakota, but this one has a unique design, and we did it in Brandon, where we had a contractor that kind of gave us some special things with the bump out of the windows. It makes it just feel real roomy and big in there, and it's been very, very well received in that community. And with the site that we have in Watertown, we just felt that it would be a great location to try that here in this community. So, like I said, it's been very well received in Brandon. So, are there any other questions?
What about park allocation for a project like this?
Park allocation, we will have a portion of the site set aside with a playground area, and then the covered picnic shelter. We do that in all of our developments. We have a it's usually suitable to, we typically do a little bit larger number of units, but this one is being designed because we are building it next to two of the properties that we currently own and manage, Cornell 1 and Cornell 2, so that they can also come and use this playground area. It will have benches for people to sit in, and that's what we kind of keep that green space there for a park-like setting for the families that come to live there and the children.
I may be mistaken, but the park ordinance passed a number of years ago. Is this passed through the Park and Rec Board?
I don't believe so.
Rick, would you want to help us out here?
And while Rick's coming to the podium, I think I can tell you that at the time of plating or master planning, the Parks Department is going to get to choose whether or not they take the park dedication or the cash dedication in lieu of park dedication. So the Park and Rec Board will get a chance to see the plat and decide what they want. But my understanding, based on the presentation she just made, is that they're going to be dedicating a portion of land for park purposes.
This is already platted property, I think, in that question. Having been platted, having been annexed, I think that question's already been answered, Mr. Garnos, at the time of platting, like Stanton says, either by ordinance at the time of platting or annexation
But
or
the
master
Parks
plan.
Board has made the selection of land?
I would guess years ago. I don't know the exact answer to their decision, but this being platted property, that issue has already, that would have been the appropriate time to
Because
take
it is the appropriate agency that determines where that park would be located.
The park board is, yes, by our ordinance, that's correct.
And Mr. Garnos and members of the council, please understand, these are very preliminary discussions. All Costello Realty is here for is getting, an endorsement from the council that you're in favor of such a development. The site plan discussions and all of the follow-on details that needs to take place with staff needs to still take place. Those are the points in time when we'll answer many of the questions that you're bringing up tonight.
Answer, but I still like to have those questions answered. Thank you.
Yeah, if they didn't receive the council's support on this with the letter, there'd be pretty much no reason to go forward with it. So,
Exactly.
so this is one of the first steps we need.
I make a motion that the council full-heartedly support this and authorize the mayor to sign.
Motion by Alderman York for the approval letter of support. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. You have a letter of support. Thank you. Item number 7 is consideration of the SESAC performance license for municipalities in Stanton.
Thank you, Mayor. As the council probably recalls, last year you entered into an agreement with ASCAP, and this is the companion organization to ASCAP. It's I refer to it as CSAC. They're basically two licensing organizations within the country that deal with copyrighted work. So if you play a copyrighted work like at the rec center or at the outdoor pool or someplace like that, you need to enter into these licensing agreements or you risk a violation of the Lanham Act, the federal copyright laws. So these organizations look for look for entities like the City of Watertown, because they know that we're probably playing these copyrighted works at various public gathering places, and we can do it. We just have to pay this what I consider is a small licensing fee in order to avoid the copyright police coming after us. And in talking with other municipalities throughout the state, they generally all enter into these if they're of large size. And I was surprised that it took CSAC a while to catch up to Watertown, but ASCAP has caught up with us a couple years early, but now CSAC has obviously gotten wind that we entered into their competitors agreement, so now they're asking that we enter into this one for calendar year '07.
And that fee would be approximately $300, was it, Tracy, or?
$244 for
$244.
It's based on population.
Okay. Is there a motion then for the approval of the performance license from CSAC? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Giselbeck. Any further?
With my hands up.
Yes, that's exactly what it is, Alderman Heller. Seconded by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 8 is the update on the wastewater treatment facility pH control, and Mike Berger.
Thank you, Mayor Fox and members of the council. As you may recall, I came before the City Council on December 18th to request permission for the mayor to sign an agreement with EarthTech to have them provide engineering services related to short-term pH control measures at the wastewater treatment facility. Since that time, we have implemented the application of liquid sodium hydroxide in the wastewater treatment facility flow to stabilize pH at a level in compliance with our discharge permit. Our effluent pH now appears to have stabilized at about 6.9 to 7.0, which is above the minimum permit limit of 6.5. EarthTech provided their recommendations on short-term pH control measures on time and have worked with us to implement this method of sodium hydroxide application to avoid effluent violations. Essentially, we began applying sodium hydroxide out of 55-gallon drums to the wastewater treatment facility flow to stabilize the pH as a sort of a stopgap method. And this was at EarthTech's recommended feed rate, and we're now planning to change over to a larger chemical day tank and associated piping to provide a safer work environment for the staff and a more reliable application point while we look at the long-term pH control measures that will be necessary, because that'll take a few months. So at the current level of sodium hydroxide feed, we're expending chemical at the rate of about $6,100 a month. At this feed rate, we estimate we will meet and exceed the $15,000 expenditure limit requiring the sealed bid process within 2.5 months. So we're here tonight to request permission to go out for bids for sodium hydroxide, and this does come with the approval of the January 9th Public Works Committee.
Is there a motion, please? So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a seconded by Alderman Giselbeck? Any further questions or discussion?
Mike, it's kind of basic chemistry, adding soda to vinegar to level out the acidity. What do we contribute the fluctuating of this to start with?
That's going to be something we're going to be talking about next in the long-term contract. The most likely correlation appears to be related to reduced alkalinity in the influent to the wastewater treatment facility. Essentially, the activated sludge process that we've had for 10 years now, when that treats ammonia and it converts it to nitrate, as it does that, it consumes alkalinity. If alkalinity isn't there, the process drives its own pH down and inhibits itself and can bring pH down to a level where it's not permissible to discharge it. So that's the most likely suspect we've seen now, but that's going to all come under the long term, which we'll talk about. The next item is we're going to request moving forward with EarthTech to look at the actual cause of the lower pHs and look at the long-term applications and modifications that we're going to consider.
We don't want to lose that gold star status.
No, it's been real good. and right now we're at a level where we've got to feed about 77 gallons of 50% solution a day. And the stuff crystallizes at, in the 50-degree range, and it's in a building that doesn't have air handling units, and we're struggling just to maintain. So that's why we're going forward now with the larger day tank and some piping, because the long-term process and analysis will take several months.
Any other questions for Mike? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Mike, item B.
Yes, I wanted to request permission for the mayor to sign an agreement with EarthTech for engineering services related to long-term pH control measures. This agreement, based upon their rate structure and estimated hours, is not to exceed $16,700 without prior written approval. Under this agreement, the long-term needs analysis will be performed to verify the cause of the current low pH values and evaluate modifications to address this deficiency. They'll be looking at feeding various chemicals to provide alkalinity and pH balance, as well as considering modifications to other processes. The activated sludge process that I just mentioned, there can be modifications made to that to recover some alkalinity biologically, as opposed to feeding these expensive chemicals, and they'll look at that. And this will all be done, of course, with the goal of ensuring that we can continue to meet our effluent permit limits. And they will evaluate these modifications and develop sizing and cost estimates, and then prepare a final report with their recommended alternative.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a motion then to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with Earth Tech?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Heller and seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mike. Item number 9 is consideration of bids received for the electrical vault building for the airport. Herb?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The city received 3 bids for the electrical vault building, which is included in the federal funding for the airport runway narrowing project. A copy of that bid tab is provided in your packets. The low bidder was Gray Construction in the amount of $44,350, which was well below the projected budget estimate of $50,000. This project is AIP eligible, so the city's portion of the cost will be 3%, or $1,330.50. Therefore, I'd request a motion for the to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract for this project with Gray Construction for $44,350. This comes with the Public Works Committee recommendation for approval from their January 9th meeting.
Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved by Alderwoman York. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Heller. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 10 is the authorization to advertise for bids for the 2007 street and alley improvement projects. And Dave Peterson?
Good evening. This request is to advertise for bids for the special assessment street and alley projects, which were previously approved by the council. We're about done with the design of these projects and would like to have your approval to advertise.
Is there a motion to that effect, please? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dave. Item number 11 is the authorization to advertise for bids for construction of a storage building for the street department. And Mike Rye.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. That's what that is to advertise for a salt sand storage building for the street department. Should help bring us in compliance with stormwater phase 2 requirements.
That was the driving force behind it, right, Mike?
Right.
Yep. Okay. Is there a motion then to authorize the advertising for bids?
So moved. That motion.
So moved by Alderman Arbogast, seconded by Alderman Garnos. Is there any further questions or discussion?
It's going to be a hoop type of building.
Wooden walls, hoop top.
Whatever that is. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Item number 12 is the approval of the renewal of the insurance policy with the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance, which is general liability, government officials liability, auto liability, and physical damage and law enforcement liability. And Tracy?
Thank you. That's kind of a mouthful, I know, but I should point out to you that the premium that was in your agenda packet has been changed. The renewal quote initially that we received had one too many refuse vehicles in there, so the premium went down slightly. The revised total is $279,890.61, which represents about a 7.6% increase over last year on the same level of coverages. We did see for the first time in quite a few years a slight increase in the auto liability rates, and then of course as we grow as a community and add additional vehicles and additional employees and so forth, the exposures that are covered under these various policies grow as well. So my recommendation is for you to renew the policy and authorize payment of the premium.
Is there a motion to that effect, please? So moved by Alderman Heller, seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we'll move to item number 13 on the open. The first two items on the open have been withdrawn. We'll move to item number 3 is the authorization for the mayor to sign the bus facility lease agreement with Watertown Area Transit Incorporated. Herb, will you or Stan?
I'll start, and then if Stanton's got
Okay.
any comments he can add. Stanton Downwalder from Watertown Area Transit, and I've been working on a lease between the City of Watertown and Watertown Area Transit for the use of the building across the street that was just completed here recently. This is a requirement from our previous funding agreements with the South Dakota Department of Transportation. They want to see documentation that we do in fact have the building leased, since the city is in fact the owner of the building. The terms of the lease agreement are very typical of any lease that the city enters into with another party. It spells out the provisions for length and term of the lease, building maintenance, insurance, allowing for improvements, payment of utilities, and provisions regarding termination. In this case, the terms of the lease could be for as long as 50 years, but we've set it up to be a year-by-year lease, renewable at the beginning of each year. The Watertown Area Transit Board has considered the terms of the lease and have agreed to them. Their chairman signed off late last week. Therefore, I'd request the council's authorization for the mayor and finance officer to enter into this lease agreement between the city and Watertown Area Transit. Again, this comes with Public Works Committee recommendation for approval from the January 9th meeting. With that, I'd entertain any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. Is there a motion then for the approval of the mayor and finance officer to sign the lease agreement? So moved by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any further questions or discussion? I
Well-
believe, Stan, you wrote the lease. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay.
Mentioning the bus barn, as I recall, there was some landscaping and stuff like that supposed to be done. Is that in the future or what?
That will be done in the spring. By the time we got done putting down asphalt, it was too late to finish planting the trees. But the sprinkler system and the grass is in, but there's 4 trees that still need to be planted, and there's some additional asphalt that needs to go down.
Any other questions?
Is the lease available for council people to look at?
Yeah, my expectation is that it should have been attached to the agenda, but maybe it didn't get there.
It is, it's available on the website as an attachment to the Finance Committee agenda.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Herb and Stanton. The next open item, which isn't on the agenda that you received on the open items, is the part-time Watertown 911 dispatch position. Chief Vitek.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and City Council members, I'm coming before you this evening. This afternoon yet, I met with the Finance Committee meeting and subsequently are here before you this evening requesting the approval of a contingency account budget transfer for $11,400. This money is being requested to fund a part-time position in the 911 center. I'd like to give you a little history as to how this has come about. During the negotiation process with the Fraternal Order of Police, the matter of the fact came up that there's 16 hours in the dispatch center when we have single coverage, meaning that we only have one dispatcher that works. We've configured that schedule as such so to have that single coverage at what we consider to be the time when we have the less volume of calls for service, which is 2 a.m. in the morning until 10 a.m. in the morning on Wednesday and Thursday evenings. Nonetheless, it was of concern, and I was requested by the mayor and the city attorney to research this matter and see if it was probable or possible where we could fund and basically a part-time position so that we could have double coverage in the dispatch center continuously 24 hours a day. This is coming to you as a result of that research. In 2005, we had 26,000 calls, as you can see on the package that I placed at your chairs there. And then in 2006, we've had 29,000 calls, 29,520 calls. So in essence, in 1 year's time, the volume of calls has increased almost by 3,000. In addition to that, I should bring to your attention that in December the 12th of 2006, we went live providing 911 service for Grant County and Roberts County. During that partial monthly period between December the 12th and December the 31st, we took 124 calls for service. So simply by just doing the math, we can anticipate anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 additional calls for service above what we recognized just in that 1 year. So at the year end, we had something in the vicinity, and Tracy, you can help me out if I'm off on this, but about $46,000 in the 911 fund. So I come to you requesting $11,400 to fund a part-time position so that we can have double coverage in the dispatch center 24 hours a day continuously and fill that gap that's currently existing for 16 hours.
Is there a motion for that approval?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Solberg and seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any further questions for Chief Vitek?
Chief, where does the training funds come into play on this? You gotta train this part-time person, I assume.
Yes, sir, we do. We have an applicant that's that we were talking to. As a matter of fact, I will tell you that the retired Assistant Chief Lonnie Greenfield is interested in filling this, so his learning curve will be minimal. I will be required within the year's time, which is mandated by law enforcement training. They'll have to attend a 40-hour training session in Pierre, but we have up to a year to meet that requirement of a 40. Essentially, 1 week he would have to go to Pierre.
Chief, in all of these 29,000 calls, do you have them broken down by the hour of the day?
No, sir, that's a good question. The existing CAD that we have, I'm unable to extrapolate that data. However, we'll be going live with the CAD that we just got with the grant funding that was about $180,000. And with that new CAD, I will be able to extrapolate that data and give you that information, but at this time I cannot. So I can't break it down. I can break down the types of calls, but I'm unable to tell you the time of day when our calls are driven.
But you said that 2 to 10 was the least amount of calls.
2 a.m. in the morning till 10 a.m. in the morning. Generally speaking, that's a slower time of night. Of course, you know, at any time anything could happen. But right now, that's the time of day when we only have one dispatcher working. That's on Wednesday and Thursday mornings, if you will, because it's a.m. So we just have that single coverage. So when a dispatcher needs to go to the restroom, if a dispatcher needs to take a break, essentially what we do and what we've been doing is we've been calling in the sergeant who's on duty and having them come in and fill in while that dispatcher's on break.
Any other questions for Chief Vitek? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief Vitek.
Thank you.
Referring back to the agenda, we'll move on to item number 14 is old business, and item number A is the assignment of Priority Air Inc. lease to Airco Inc. And Stanton, you'll lead us through this?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll try to be brief, but please, if at any point during this little dissertation you want to ask a question, just interrupt me, hit the mic and tell me to catch my breath. But this matters under old business because you recall previously you authorized the mayor to sign an assignment of rights from Priority Air, which is Watertown's current fixed-based operator, or FBO, at the airport, to Airco Aviation, Inc. And we thought that was the only document that needed to be prepared and signed. Since providing that authorization at I believe probably a November council meeting, a number of facts have come to light that still make that assignment possible, but we need to include a few extra steps. So I'm going to try to go through those tonight for you, and at the end, hopefully we'll wrap all of this up. In 1997, the city executed a landlord's consent with F&M Bank, at F&M, which is now known as Great Western. F&M had loaned money to Priority Air Inc., and as part security for the loan, they wanted the city's assurance that if ever there was a default on the promissory note, that the city would allow Great Western to, in effect, step in the shoes of Priority Air and, in effect, become our tenant. The city received notice in late December last year, 2006, that default had been declared in July of 2006. And since that time, we've been asked by Great Western Bank to make good on the consent that we promised them back in 1997 to allow Great Western to step in the shoes of Priority Air. So that's one of the additional steps that we're going to ask you to take tonight. And presuming you approve that, the next step will be to approve an assignment of lease rights from Great Western Bank to Anza and Pete Kliegel. And as you might imagine, Great Western Bank doesn't really want to run the FBO at the airport. And since these events began to unfold, Anza and Pete Kliegel have paid the debt that Priority Air owed Great Western. So now Anza and Kliegel possess the rights of Great Western Bank. So presuming you approve the assignment of lease rights from Great Western Bank to Anza and Pete Kliegel, the next assignment of lease rights will be from Anza and Pete Kliegel, finally, to Airco Aviation Incorporated. So, and then finally, there's one more document. As F&M Bank did in 1997, the last document that you'll be asked to approve comes from Dakota Bank. It's an assignment of lease rights similar to the landlord's consent that you gave 10 years ago to F&M Bank, only in this case it's Dakota Bank on behalf of Airco Aviation. So if all of these items are approved, I'd like the motion to include the qualification that the documents I just rattled off are going to be provided at closing, which I believe is set for tomorrow morning here in Watertown, when Airco Aviation Inc. will acquire Anza and Pete Kliegel's interest in Priority Air. So, for the purposes of discussion, and so I can quit talking and attempt to answer any questions, I would ask for the following motion. A motion affirming the city's consent to allow Great Western Bank to assume all of Priority Air's rights under their leases at the Watertown Airport, and to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign an assignment of lease from Great Western Bank to Anza and Pete Kliegel, and to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign an assignment of lease and transfer of assets from Anza and Pete Kliegel to Airco Aviation Inc., and to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign an assignment of lease for the benefit of Dakota Bank. And I see David Straight is here on behalf of Airco, and John Wiles is here on behalf of Pete Kliegel. I don't believe anybody's here for Priority Air, Anza, or Dakota Bank, or Great Western. But with that, for the purposes of discussion, if someone could maybe make that motion.
Could I have a motion, please, to what our city attorney just reiterated?
Well, I'd rather deal with Mike's chemistry than your law and finances, but we have seems like we have the main parties here that do know all about these things, so I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Okay. Motion by Alderwoman York. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any further questions or discussion?
Can the motion include not only the assignment of the lease, but the assignment of the landlord's consent from Great Western to Anza, and then from Anza to Airco?
I don't have a problem with that. I understand it. So if that's okay with the motion maker.
Oh, and one more thing it needs to include. I think the city in the past has approved the transfer of just assets of whoever is running the FBO.
Right.
So we need approval of the transfer of Priority Air's assets to Airco Aviation.
You want that included with the motion?
Please.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Stan, would you read that over one more time, please?
I'll wait.
So that we get the full.
Yep. Wants to add a few more things to the motion.
In the past, the city has approved the transfer of any assets, who's ever running the FBO.
We've approved both the transfer of assets as well as the assignment of lease.
Right. So the transfer of those assets that have been, they've been foreclosed on, the city just needs to give their blessing to the transfer of that.
Okay, because you wouldn't have any authorization to.
The last portion of the motion, David, included, just before we got to Dakota Bank, was to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign an assignment of lease and transfer of assets from Anza and Pete Kliegel to Airco Aviation.
That's right.
What else additional were you suggesting we add?
The landlord's consent and then approval of the transfer of those assets.
And that's what I was referring to.
Right. Okay.
Was there anything else that we haven't missed, that we've missed?
think that covers it.
Do you want me to read through it again?
Please, Stan, would you one more time?
Okay. A motion to affirm the city's consent to allow Great Western Bank to assume all of Priority Air's rights under their leases at the Watertown Airport, and authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign an assignment of lease from Great Western Bank to Anza and Pete Kliegel, and authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign an assignment of lease and transfer of assets from Anza and Pete Kliegel to Airco Aviation, Inc., and authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign an assignment of lease for the benefit of Dakota Bank.
And Alderwoman York, was that your motion?
That would be my motion.
And was that your second, Alderman Solberg? Okay. Any further questions or discussion?
I just wanted to say, for somebody that might be wondering at home why we're dealing with all this when it's a private business, the city's interest is merely that it's on our property at the airport, correct?
Yes, and also it relates to the fixed-based operator at the airport,
Right.
and so the city enters into those leases, so the city isn't out filling up the Masaba tanks with fuel and doing airport maintenance. They want to engage in that calling within the airport grounds, so we enter into leases to make sure that gets done.
But as far as the finances with different banks and so on, I mean, that's their own business, correct?
Absolutely. We receive lease payments from whoever the tenant is as the fixed-based operator, but the ongoing operational costs for the fixed-based operator and what it costs to run it are between them and their banks.
Stan, how does this affect the agreement that the airport has with the fixed-based operator to do certain maintenance or safety tests or safety checks and that kind of thing?
Their runway safety inspections and those kinds of things.
Right.
The supplemental services agreements, all the leases, we are approving in effect, we're going to just erase the name Priority and put in the name Airco Aviation, Inc., and all the same services, all the same terms are going to be complied with. It's just going to be with another tenant's name in the blank. We have been approached by Airco Aviation, and they've requested we could probably fill up the area in front of me with all the various lease documents that exist currently with Priority. In the interest of clearing all of that up, I know I can speak for Eric and Airco Aviation, Inc. and me and the finance office that we would like to, if this deal gets done, sit down at the table and start anew with new lease agreements. Some of these things are very archaic and they're very difficult to understand, and that's why it took us several weeks with many attorneys trying to sort all of this stuff out to find out what needed to be done. So everything should remain the same, and hopefully we're going to come back with you in the very near future with some new leases that are going to make everyone's life easier.
Well, hopefully when you get more than two attorneys together, I don't know how you ever come up with an agreement.
Just about at a bar convention.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much.
One other question, David.
Yeah.
David, who's Airco?
Who is Airco? Ron Crocker.
Item number 14 was old business. Is there any other old business? I'm not aware of any. If not, we'll move on to item number 15, new business. Does any members have any new business to bring before the council? If not, we'll move on to item number 16, liaison member reports.
Yeah, I've got one.
Okay, Alderman Giselbeck.
I'm on with the Watertown Transit, and they really appreciate their new building. And they last year had a total passenger riding of 41,018 passengers last year, and now we've got 5 buses, one small new bus that's got a Mercedes-Benz engine in it, and they get 22 miles a gallon on it.
Wonderful.
So,
thank you, Tuffy. Any other liaison member reports? We will need to go into executive session in regard to contract negotiations, and when we come out of executive session, I believe we will be taking action. Is that correct, Tracy? No, we will not be. Okay. I would like a motion to go into executive session. So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We will go into executive session.